The hijacker. How can you recognize his con toward you? Okay, we are going to break this down. Now, here's what I want you to know. Your partner's brain has been hijacked. I just shared with you. It's been hijacked since childhood. This hijacker, he's cozy. The way that I talk about it is he has booted your partner over into the passenger seat of his car. He's literally hijacked your partner's brain. He is in control. We know from the science that your partner's frontal lobe has been deactivated. That makes it so that decision making and judgment, executive function, which is planning and organization, they are harder. The brakes in your partner's brain have been cut. So he's no longer able to pump the brakes on going back to porn and sex to feel good and take the edge off. At the same time, the reward center in your partner's brain, in the midbrain, has been desensitized. It's basically been fried out. The receptors in the reward center have been disintegrated and fried. What that means is your partner needs more and more porn and sex and more intense porn and sex, and it escalates because those receptors aren't firing up like they used to. So when your partner's, I'm just going to say porn, but it includes all sexual acting out just to make it easy. So your partner's porn habit began when he was 10, 11, 12, and those receptors were fired up the first time, big time. Then the brain had to calibrate itself to get used to that firing up from all that dopamine. That's the second time. On the second time, your partner's brain needed even more dopamine to get the same firing up. Over time, tolerance is built. What tolerance means is those receptors have been fired up so often, so frequently, so consistently, and with increasing intensity that now it needs more to fire up and get the same response because they're not firing up as well. They've been desensitized. And unfortunately, what that can create for your partner is erectile dysfunction when he tries to be with you. And it has nothing to do with you. What it has to do with is the reward center in his brain's fried. So now having sex with an actual human being who's not like a porn performer, there's not enough sensitization and intensity and firing up of the brain. It's a brain thing. Your partner might not even know it's happening to him. Most partners don't. They just feel it as, wanting to watch something new and wanting to see something intense. They don't get that their brain's leveled out at the level that they're at, and it has to go for another level to get the same response. This thing's very tricky, very sleuthy. That's the hijacker. Hijacker booting him into the passenger seat and doing all of this while he's just hitting the easy button. So then what happens too is your partner might not be as interested in having sex with you. We know from the science, partners then view you, their partner, as not as sexy and not as appealing. But not because of you, because that reward center's been fried out, that it needs all this heightened, it needs to see 3 women who are half your age and half your size, not because of you, because of the brain. And that's because the hijacker, that might not even be your partner's preference. So what happens for many people, for many men, and they'll tell me about this with devastation. One person I talked to the other day literally said that once he figured out what I was talking about, because of what he's been consuming, which I won't share, but none of us would be pleased by it, that what he had been consuming made him sick. Once he realized this, that he was throwing up and that he hadn't eaten in weeks and that he continually throws up. He signed up for all of my programs, thankfully, and he's fairly young, so I should be able to help him, and it's going to be a process, but, he realized the hijacker had him watching this stuff that morally was incongruent for him and that he didn't even know. I'll share one more thing and then we'll move through to the cycle, is that this hijacker is a narcissist. So that means all he wants is more for himself. And it creates what's called a narcissistic bubble. And this is the con. The narcissistic bubble makes your partner want more pleasure for himself. And if that's not the agenda, it makes him angry and irritable. So that's why your partner might want you to do things. That's why your partner has to go back for more pornography. That's why your partner might go act out sexually in a way that he never would if he wasn't hijacked. And a lot of people will report to me that one person was with another person, had an affair for weeks, and they stayed in that bubble for weeks. And finally, when their wife found out and they snapped out of it, they're like, whoa, I didn't even see that was wrong. When they're in the narcissistic bubble, all they can think of is the more dopamine hit. That's where the brain is at. And when they're not getting dopamine, they're mad, but they can't see that they're in this bubble. That's the con. So the con is to stay in the bubble and to get back to what they need. The brain, the hijacker, to get back to what he needs, he will manipulate you. But here's what I'm here to tell you. He's manipulating your partner too. Your partner might know that he's doing it, but he might not be able to control it. Addiction is sleuthy, and it fights to stay alive. It's going to fight through this process, which is why you have to learn how to identify it. You can probably identify it in the past. You're likely going to need to identify it in the present so that it goes away in the future. So if you're being manipulated, if actions are being rationalized, justified, and minimized, that's the con. That's the addiction, the hijacker conning you. Now, if you can depersonalize it from your partner and see it as the hijacker, then you're in a better place. You can go, oh, this is where I'm at with my partner. But you still can't trust your partner because the hijacker's driving the car. And if you can conceptualize it that way, I think it makes it easier, because the goal of these recovery programs, you're in the back seat right now. You got no control over this situation. You might be hanging on to the back of the trunk for dear life, being taken for a ride by this thing, but the hijacker's driving. We need to boot the hijacker out of the car. Empower your partner to get his butt back in the driver's seat of his own life and his own brain. And when he does that, he's going to make room for you in the passenger seat. And hopefully you want to still go on that journey with him. If he's not able to do that, you're going to need to get in your own car, and you're going to need to be able to figure out your own path. And we've already talked about that. But this is the journey. And I want you to know, hijacker's driving the car right now. So, your partner has to boot him out. You have to stay strong. Look for the manipulation. Let me give you an example, then we'll move on. So manipulation, a gentleman said it to me the other day. He's like, I'm feeling great. And most people can watch porn, once every couple months and it be okay. No. That is rationalizing. That is minimizing the situation that you're in. That's what I said to him. And he's like, oh. Because he still wants to hang on to this habit. You have to understand, the hijacker wants to hang on for dear life. And your partner, the hijacker has served him. He's soothed him for a long time. He's taken the pain away for a long time. And now your partner has to learn how to deal with the pain of life. And if there's trauma, he has to resolve the trauma and get it out so life is less painful. And then he has to create a life that is enjoyable. And if you're there in an enjoyable life with him, that's a beautiful thing. That's why you have to learn how to heal the attachment styles and feel strong yourself so that you're not caught in this vortex for the rest of your life. At the same time, we know from the science, if you don't heal the vortex aspects, you'll take it into your next relationship, because that's where you're at right now. That's why you need to heal yourself. Okay. So I hope that helps you out. I hope you understand this a little bit more. Follow me through so I can teach you about the cycle of sexual addiction in the next lesson. I'll see you there.